Welcome to One Slot. I am Felicity Ezewuike. 19 years ago, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, came into force as a universal court to achieve criminal justice worldwide. But while the court can be said to have contributed to criminal justice in Africa, there are, however, growing accusations that it is unfair, unfairly, or for some, inappropriately targeting African states, as injustice is not only prevalent in Africa but across the world. Calls for African countries to pull out of the ICC gained traction after the court issued a warrant of arrest for then-sitting President Umar al-Bashir of Sudan in 2009, and it's been on since then. Is Africa really a soft target for the ICC's investigations? Should Africa withdraw from the ICC? Or is reformation of the ICC a better consideration? Are there alternative structures that can better address injustice in Africa? Well, I am joined for this conversation by David Matsanga, a Ugandan-born lawyer, conflict resolution expert, and a Pan-African. He has been very vocal about his dissatisfaction with the ICC, especially in its handling of the case of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto. The two were accused of fueling the election violence in Kenya in 2007. Mr. Matsanga is also said to have negotiated peace talks between the Ugandan government and Joseph Kony's Lord's Resistance Army, that's the LRA rebels, that saw northern Uganda returning to peace after 26 years of fighting. David, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much, my sister from Lagos. What you have just said is correct. I am one of the I am the main chief negotiator.
All right.
Peace negotiator.
So I guess that's why we're having you for this conversation today. History tells us that African states saw the ICC as part of the solution to the problems of international crimes committed by some African leaders. They say part of what drove the enthusiasm for the tragic Rwandan genocide in April 1994 and the failure of the then UN and other international communities to act. I want to start with setting a premise for this conversation. What changed? There was enthusiasm when the ICC was created. What went wrong?
First of all, I just want to tell you that I was one of the few people who were seated in Rome in 1998, July, when ICC was being formed. I had gone there to find peace through Pope Paul of the Vatican, invited by an organization called St. Gideon. I happened to sit together with President Chisano, the late Kofi Annan, as we are bringing out that International Criminal Court. So when you talk about ICC, the formation, the groundwork, I am one of those who were there, who witnessed.
So what changed? What changed? I mean, you were there. It was a fantastic idea. I mean, justice for the international community. What went wrong?
What went wrong is the method in which ICC conducted its cases on African continent and its cases elsewhere in Africa, in the world. First, as you are aware, the first case of why I got involved is my Ugandan case. The ICC came to Uganda, indicted the Luo community, and they left the Bantu people, who are us, indicted the Northerners, and they left the Bantu. After investigating and finding out, yes, truly speaking, Kony committed heinous crimes. But equally, the Uganda People's Defense Forces, by then it was called NRA, also played a part. It was not shooting with water. It was shooting with bullets. We needed a real balanced justice for both sides, like in Bosnia. When you take a Serbian, you take a Bosnian. We took all the commanders to Yugoslavian tribunal. Why did we choose to take a few? I am not saying there were no crimes committed by the LRA. Indeed, they committed heinous crimes. That's why for us in Uganda, the first case in Africa, we decided we don't want to follow ICC anymore. We went to peace talks. The EU, the UN, the African Union, IGAD, ECOWAS, and all organizations in Africa. IGAD supported the peace process. Peace has returned in northern Uganda. So the ICC veered off from the main objective of bringing international justice. They veered off. They became for witch hunt. The first prosecutor of International Criminal Court, Louis Morone Ocampo, became selective. Selected people, tall, short, poor, ugly, black, white, slim. Take those ones.
All right, I think you've been able to establish that, they seem to have deviated from the context that you've given. But then again, is it so bad? We know that the Rwandan president, Paul Kagame, suggested at some point that the ICC is reminiscent of colonialism, and some scholars have even taken it further and said that the ICC is using Africa and Africans as sort of a sacrificial lamb in its quest to establish itself in the international, as a proper court of law in the international community. Do you align, is there some truth based on what you're saying to this argument, or is it an overkill of the deviation that you say the ICC has taken?
The formation of ICC was to bring international justice. Criminals that had committed heinous crimes, irrespective of color and creed, religion, or whatever political affiliation. ICC, when the first case occurred in Uganda, I agree with Kagame that it turned into a colonial court that actually had colonial interests, funded by colonial masters in the metros of Europe, namely France. I am one man who does not keep quiet, and I will speak until the French understand that they have destroyed Africa. It is the French who pay 70% of the salaries of ICC. They got involved. They got a man called George Soros, came on board to fund ICC. The ICC, which was to bring international justice, started targeting certain leaders that they did not want to exist. What was the use of you taking Babugo to court and you leave Quatara? What was the use of you taking Bemba and you leave Bozize? What was the use of you taking Bemba in Tagana and you leave Kabila?
But again, David, there's the question of self-referral. Some of these cases that are before the ICC was taken to the ICC by African countries. Of the 10 cases that they have, 6 of them are from Africa. We went there ourselves. So can we really turn around and blame them for taking on cases that we brought to them? Only 2 cases of the 10 cases were independently sourced by the ICC.
Yes, because there was a vacuum on African continent. Africa has not created a court, which I believe you are going to ask me why the court has failed. Africa, there was a vacuum. And I, as Dr. Matsanga, I have always maintained that Africa needs its own court. Uganda took this case because Uganda could not arrest Kony. Kony was not in their territory. The cases in Congo were referred to. The case in Ivory Coast was referred by the Security Council. The case in Sudan by the Security Council. If you look at all the cases dotted in Central African Republic, were got by the ICC themselves. The cases of Bemba versus the prosecutor was by Bemba himself, by the ICC. The question here is this. Nobody was against the ICC until we saw that ICC was working with international and local NGOs to discredit their political opponents. The case of Kenya, for example, political opponents were taken. The ones they didn't like were selected. Kofi Annan duped us into an organization which was working as his cash cow for him after retirement. When he joins retirement, Ocampo worked as a cash cow to deliver billions and millions of dollars, which some of us intercepted crucial evidence, which brought myself and that
okay,
court.
Let's stay on track a bit. Let's stay on track with the comment you made earlier about Africa requiring its own kind of court. We know that there are other regions that have come up with courts. We have the ECOWAS court, for instance. But the level of compliance is not, it's not there. Even if we have our own regional court, what are the likelihood that, governments in countries will respect the decision and the ruling of the regional ECOWAS court is there. For the case of Nigeria, for instance, there have been several rulings, from the ECOWAS court. There's been no compliance. So
yes. Who determines the compliance? Is it America? Can you go and get American, arrest one American? And take
I'm referring to what you said. No, you said that we need, Africa needs a court for such cases, right?
Yes.
And I'm referring you to the ECOWAS court. The ECOWAS court is a block court that people go to, take cases, and they make resolutions, they make rulings, but countries don't seem to comply with the ruling of the ECOWAS court. So what is the likelihood that even if we create one, when we don't have, we don't seem to have commitments to the international court, how then would we have commitments to a regional court that we create?
First of all, you are right. Some of African courts don't comply. But that does not give a blanket check for the international community supervised by neo-colonial powers themselves who don't want their prime minister, their presidents to be taken to the same court. Why does America police us to take our people to the ICC when America cannot allow a half of an American, to be taken to the ICC? Why? America invaded Afghanistan. It has left Afghanistan bleeding. Who is going to be accounted for that? Why do you hurry? Why can't you give Africans time to set themselves a court that can now, time has come for us, and we are not going to leave with nothing. We must have this court. I want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for having paid $1 million. $1 million. I was in African Union headquarters in the conference where Uhuru Kenyatta paid $1 million to the setting up of an African court. What is killing us, my sister? Let me make a point here.
Okay.
What is killing Africa is a bad management of African Union.
Okay. We will come back to the African
corrupt management that has not tried to set up this court.
Okay. Otherwise, so if we cannot manage our own affairs, how is it that we're going to, create a court and we'll be able to manage it? We'll come back to the conversation and the AU's position in all of this. But first, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we still have Mr. David Matsanga for this conversation. Don't go away.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeat and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every raise, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Thank you for staying with us. We still have Dr. David Matsanga with us. He joins us virtually. I'm staying with the questioning. He brought up the AU, so I'm going to go there. In 2012, the AU urged African states not to cooperate with the ICC in carrying out the arrest warrant for Sudan's Umar al-Bashir because of the controversies that he has also highlighted surrounding the ICC's intervention on the continent. Now, the policy of non-cooperation by AU member states created quite a dilemma for African members of the ICC at the time. So just before we went on that break, you were talking about the AU not being effective in managing itself. And at some point, it created a policy of non-cooperation. So is it possible that this policy of non-cooperation will come to the ICC's procedures later, but this non-cooperation, isn't it impacting negatively on the operations of the ICC and making it look like it is targeting Africa?
First of all, in articles of the Roma Statute, we created Article 127 of the Roma Statute, which is very clear. If any party is not happy with the International Criminal Court, the party takes off. If the marriage is not worth it, you divorce, you go away, you give notice to the International United Nations Secretary General and tell them, I will be leaving the International Criminal Court. The African Union came out with a resolution for African heads of state to quit the International Criminal Court. Some of the African countries, as you said, ECOWAS, there's cases that they make a decision and they backstab themselves and withdraw. One of the dangers that we have on the continent of Africa, my sister, is a bad administration in Addis Ababa. It is led. Who funds the African Union? The same country that has colonized, destabilized Africa. In West Africa, in Central Africa, in North Africa, in Tripoli, in Libya. Look at the way Libya is bleeding. It's the same country that controls the ICC. It went back and campaigned amongst these countries that if you pull out of ICC, we shall embargo you. We shall not give you a dispensary. We shall not give you a road. We shall not give you a loan. This is France. And I'm being honest. France has caused us several wars in Africa. Total Oil is on the move to cause chaos in Africa. Time has come for people of Africa to speak up. That's why AU is breaking to pieces. AU cannot make a decision on ICC. There's no single letter that AU tried to even campaign. In fact, I talked more than the AU about ICC. I stood in international television more than the AU. The AU chairperson has never spoken the way I'm speaking.
Okay, so let me try and understand. I mean, you're clear where you stand when it comes with the ICC, but is it the concept itself, the goal of the ICC itself remains noble? What your challenge is primarily, if I can infer correctly, is the way they are going about carrying out this justice. Is it possible that it has to do with a procedure, or do you think that politics is coming in and affecting how the ICC works? If yes, then wouldn't a reformation of the ICC be a more appropriate approach?
You have hit the point. The ICC itself started very well. It has a problem. One of the problems is concentrating the powers to one individual, one office. The office of the chief prosecutor is an investigator, arresting officer, a charge sheet officer, charges you, asks for sentence, even makes a case. That one is a wrong thing. It is better to be charged in a court in Lagos or Nairobi or Kampala than to be taken to the ICC, because the prosecuting body is one. In Kampala, Lagos, the police investigate your case, hand it over to the DPP, who sees whether there is any evidence. The office of the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has taken all this, to do what other courts don't do. So there is no justice there. We must clean it. Okay. We must correct it and bring it to an international standard. The second point is the type of victimization, the focus of making Africa a soft spot where you come to pluck people and take. The third point is none of the cases in ICC, apart from Thomas Lubanga and another one, the Bemba case you saw, the Babugo case you saw, the Kenyan cases you saw, are collected on fake flimsy evidence.
David, not to interrupt you, but we're pressed for time. So, but I need to find out from you. There's so much grievance against the ICC, and I know this conversation is going to continue. But I want you to speak briefly on the future of the relationship between the ICC and Africa. What kind of relationship do you foresee in the future? I would also want you to chip in as quickly as you can. What kind of reformation would be urgently, immediate, to begin to address some of the concerns that African states are raising? If you can do that in 1 minute, please.
What they can do, we have now got a very good prostitute, a prostitute who knows the pain of what Africa is, and he comes from Britain. In Britain, we have the law that if you do things outside and come back, even the law will follow you. So Mr. Karim Khan Kisi must change the shape of ICC. 2, we must stop. We must get funding directly from the UN, other than bringing in George Soros and France, who direct whom to be arrested on African continent.
All right.
If we do that, people will come back to the ICC and maybe respect it. Other than that, these are all fake cases. All
right.
Collected on, like, before I,
all right, we really need to wrap up, Doctor.
The case, my sister.
Yeah, we really are out of time. I must say thank you very much.
Of Bashir, the case of Bashir is a fake case. They were paid money.
All right,
Mr. Bashir.
All right, I keep saying, Dr. David Matsanga, I'm afraid we might need to come back to you so we continue this conversation because the time didn't allow us to do justice. But thank you very much for your inputs today.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Bless you too.
God bless all of you in Nigeria. God bless all of you. Avoid the conflict.
All right, stay safe. Now, I am actually for the school of thought that there is a very serious need for the ICC, but definitely not as presently constituted. Urgent reforms are required to give it a more global perspective rather than this tool that seems like it is solely aimed at whipping African leaders into line. The court must consider as quickly as possible the concerns raised by African states and conscientiously work to address them. You've been following this conversation. What do you think? Please share your views. Tag us on social media at News Central TV using the hashtag #OneSlot. Until next week, thank you very much for watching and bye for now.